Have you ever wondered what it means to belong to a country? To have a legal identity, a piece of paper that decides whether you can go to school, access healthcare, get a job, or simply stay in the place you have always called home. In October 2023, the government of Pakistan issued a sweeping directive. All foreign nationals without valid visas, especially those who had overstayed by more than a year, would be required to leave the country. Although the order applied broadly, its impact was focused on a single group, Afghan nationals. At the time, Pakistani authorities claimed that there were about 4.4 million Afghans living in the country. The United Nations put the figure slightly lower, at 3.8 million. Regardless of the exact number, both estimates confirmed that Afghans accounted for 98% of all foreign nationals residing in Pakistan. By January 2025, more than 813,000 Afghans had already been repatriated, either voluntarily or through forced deportation. The government framed the move as a security measure. Officials linked the rise in terrorist activity to undocumented Afghans population. Authorities had claimed that 8 out of 11 militants involved in assaults carried on military bases in Balochistan then were Afghan citizens. The Afghan Taliban was accused of harboring members of the Tehreek-e-Taliban-e-Pakistan, a group Islamabad holds responsible for much of the violence in the country. But critics were quick to question the timing and intent. Some analysts suggested that the deportation drive was also a political tool aimed at pressuring the Afghan Taliban into cooperating with Pakistani demands. Others
इसके साथ-साथ दहशतगर्दी में मुलव्वस 27 अफगान दहशतगर्दों को भी सिक्योरिटी फोर्सेस ने निशाना बनाते हुए जहन्नम हासिल किया। यहाँ मैं बताता चलूं कि सिक्योरिटी फोर्सेस को रवां साल एक और बहुत बड़ी कामयाबी उस वक्त हासिल हुई जब 2 खुदकुश बमबारों को हिरासत में लेकर उनके नापाक अज़ाइम को न सिर्फ नाकाम बनाया गया, जिनमें अफगानिस्तान से ताल्लुक़ रखने वाला इंसाफुल्लाह उर्फ तना और रूहुल्लाह शामिल थे। इन खुदकुश बमबारों के कब्जे से 10 खुदकुश जैकेट्स और 250 किलोग्राम से ज़ायद धमाका खेज मवाद के साथ असला भी बरामद किया।
Argued that Afghans were being used as scapegoats in the face of mounting economic challenges and rising public frustration. To understand the scale of this crisis, it helps to remember that Afghan migration to Pakistan is not new. It began late 1970s when the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, triggering a mass exodus across the border.
Massive Soviet military forces have invaded the small, non-aligned, sovereign nation of Afghanistan, which had hitherto not been an occupied satellite of the Soviet Union. 50,000 heavily armed Soviet troops have crossed the border and are now dispersed throughout Afghanistan, attempting to conquer the fiercely independent Muslim people of that country.
The numbers have swelled again after the US-led invasion in 2001.
On my orders, the United States military has begun strikes against Al-Qaeda terrorist training camps and military installations of the Taliban regime in Afghanistan.
And once more in 2021 when the Afghan Taliban took over Kabul and foreign troops withdrew. Now, over the decades, many of these refugees built entire lives in Pakistan. Some married here, started businesses, and raised children who have never set foot in Afghanistan. For these second or even third generation Afghans, Pakistan is only home they knew. Yet, without documentation, they have no formal recognition and no protection. However, while deporting, everyone forgot that we were just not reporting migrants, we were also deporting kids, families, and futures.
Well, at first it was stressful because we do not have the option to go back to our own country because, the security reasons. And my husband and I have been working for the media for more than 10 years, and there we have all the documents. And they said that those who have visas, they are not going to send them back. But a few days back, the police came. The visa system has changed in here, and it was really stressful for me because I have small children, and my children, they said that them and we are get you. But because newborn baby twins, because of them they let me stay and they didn't take me. 4 girls were taken from here and they didn't have any idea their family where they were taken. And then after 2 days they called and they said that they are in Afghanistan and they were sent there We've been living here like for 4 years, so we have we have a whole house and everything. And if a police comes and take you and deports you, and you have to leave everything, and it's not that you have people around and they will take care of your health or things. I have 2 daughters. If I see them not going to school, that is the biggest stress for me. If I cannot work myself, if I cannot go out myself, that is the biggest stress for me. And these days, when people come from Afghanistan, we ask them about Afghanistan, they say that it looks like the city is dead. It's a dead city, because you see people around but they're not happy. You see all those frustrated face men, or really frustrated. You don't see women a lot, but when you see them, you just see a few women, because everything is restricted. Working women have been threatened not to go to their offices, to their work. So even my sister, she worked with the USAID, and she was threatened not to go to her office. My sister-in-law, she was threatened not to go, and they work from home. I have the visa right now, but I have to extend the visa. And as I said before, they only extend your visa for a month, which means that you have to wait for 1 whole month to get an extended visa for the next week. Procedures take time. So that is a big fear right now for me. If they come and they deport me, my children, there are a lot of things that I have to worry, because it's really hot weather. My children, we have to go to that Torkham border, which is really rush and crowded. That's not safe for children, for women. And then I have to go back to my own country, which is again not safe for me, for my daughters, for my husband. And then if you want to come back here, it's a lot of expenses. You have to get visas for at least $1,000, and we are a family of 7 right now, and my in-laws also, so we are a family of 9, and $9,000 getting visas again, that is a big stress.
I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of Afghan refugees in Iran and Pakistan, but the Afghan diaspora at this point in time is spread globally. So that's why they're really fleeing. You have the Soviets invading, you have the Taliban coming in, and then you have US forces coming in as well. So that's created a lot of instability in Afghanistan. And once they see no future in living in the country, or kind of see their lives as being kind of like out of place in their own homeland, then they kind of have to flee. And just for some sense of stability, that's why they've fled, and that's why they've settled in so many different countries today. So Sajid, Afghans have lived in Pakistan for quite a while now, and the only reasonable expectation one would have is to grant them citizenship, especially for those who've been here since the 1980s and the 1990s. At this point, you almost have a third generation of Afghans who are living in Pakistan. By definition, with Pakistan's Citizenship Act as well, anyone who's born in Pakistan should automatically get Pakistani citizenship. But that's not the case with Afghans. So it's not even just a case of calling them refugees in terms of othering them, or even, as the Urdu phrase is, Gair Maqami Log, ya Mahajir, ya Mahajireen, or in Pashto, Afghan Kadwal. It's a case in which they've been completely othered. And we see this in the geographies of our cities as well. In Peshawar, they've been ghettoized. In Islamabad, they've been ghettoized to Tarnol. In Karachi, they've been ghettoized to the northern bypass. They used to live in Surabkot, but then in the late 80s and the early 90s, they were pushed out towards northern bypass. And these are places that they've kind of settled and created themselves. And if you go to Afghan Basti today, it resembles what any Kachi Abadi would look like in Pakistan. It really can't work any other way, because people who have now been born in Pakistan and have lived in Pakistan, or people who were born in Afghanistan and have lived a considerable amount of their lives in Pakistan, have no real recourse or reason to go back to Afghanistan now, in a country that's completely encaptured by a Taliban dictatorship, in which there are shortages of water, electricity, money, a lack of safety for women and children, and essentially little to no to poor education standards globally.
But Afghans are not the only ones living in legal limbo. Experts estimate that 2 to 3 million people in Pakistan are effectively stateless. This includes 400,000 to 500,000 Rohingya refugees, roughly 1 million undocumented Bengali and Bihari Pakistanis, and 1.5 undocumented Afghans. Among the largest stateless communities are ethnic Bengalis, most of whom live in Karachi. Their story is tied to the legacy of East Pakistan, which became Bangladesh in 1971. To understand the difference between stateless and refugee, DawnNews English reached out to Nimra Arshad.
When we talk about the difference between refugees and stateless persons, refugees are granted recognition and legal status under the 1951 Refugee Convention, the UN Convention on Refugees. Now, and this convention came into being after World War II and essentially was narrow in scope and was designed to provide protection to refugees that had come about as a result of World War II. And then in 1967, a protocol to the treaty came about, which expanded the scope of the treaty and essentially broadened the applicability of the treaty to refugees worldwide. Now, under the convention, refugees are defined as individuals who are unable to or unwilling to go back to their home country or country of citizenship or country of origin due to a well-founded fear of persecution based on any number of factors, based on their ethnicity, their religion, their political opinions, or their membership of a particular group. But with refugees, the key difference, and when I explain what stateless persons are, this will sort of become more clear. But refugees are able to retain their citizenships. They just are unable to enjoy the protections that come with being a citizen of a particular country. Now, stateless persons are recognized under the 1954 convention, UN Convention on the Status of Stateless Persons. Stateless persons are individuals who do not have any nationality or are not considered national of any country under the operation of their laws. How does statelessness come about? Statelessness could come about in a number of different ways. It could come about because there are gaps in citizenship laws. It could come about because certain countries' citizenship laws explicitly exclude certain ethnic groups from attaining citizenship. And a big example of that is Myanmar's 1982 citizenship law, which specifically excluded the Muslim minority Rohingya group from attaining citizenship of Myanmar, which means now there are about 1 million Rohingya Muslims in Myanmar, in Pakistan, in India, spread across this region who are considered stateless people because they do not have citizenship of Myanmar, and neither do these countries who host them have been able to provide them any kind of recognition. So with stateless people, essentially they're not considered refugees because they do not technically fall under the definition of refugees because they're not fleeing from any kind of persecution, and they're obviously not citizenships because they do not enjoy they're not citizens of a particular country. So essentially with stateless people, they're in a legal vacuum, they're in a legal limbo because they do not have protections afforded that come because by dint of citizenship, and neither do they have protections that come with having refugee status. So essentially, in a nutshell, this is the difference between a refugee and a stateless person.
One of the most densely populated areas is Machar Colony, a sprawling slum near Karachi port. Known also as Mohammadi Colony, it is home to an estimated 700,000 people, with around 65% identifying as Bengali. Most families here work in the fishing industry, peeling shrimp, cleaning fish, or mending nets, which is why the area is also called Fisherman's Colony. Some homes are even built on stilts over water. But beneath the surface of everyday life lies a deeper crisis. Many residents here have no national identity card or legal documents to prove their citizenship. Without an NIC, you cannot even enroll in school, access healthcare, or even open a bank account. Generations grow up without a legal identity invisible to the state. Some are too young to understand the implications of this, but others, like Kulsum and Sonia, are already aware that their lack of citizenship could limit their futures. No ID means no official schooling, no exams, and eventually no access to employment.
मेरा नाम सोनिया है और मैं 16 साल की हूँ और मैं यहाँ पे 10 साल से जिम्नास्टिक कर रही हूँ और पढ़ाई भी कर रही हूँ। मैंने मैट्रिक तक तो पेपर दे दिए यहाँ पे और मैंने नेशनल तक मैंने गेम खेली है। अभी मुझे खेलना है इंटरनेशनल। मैं इंटरनेशनल के लेवल तक तो आ गई हूँ, पर नेशनल मैंने इस वजह से खेला क्योंकि मेरा बी फार्म था। B.Pharm की वजह से मैंने नेशनल खेला, अभी मुझे इंटरनेशनल खेला है। इंटरनेशनल के लिए तो मेरे पास पासपोर्ट होना लाजमी है, पर मेरे पास पासपोर्ट नहीं है। मैं पासपोर्ट ऑफिस में गई तो पासपोर्ट ऑफिस वालों ने कहा कि अम्मी का ला के दो, तो अम्मी का तो मैंने मना कर दिया क्योंकि अम्मी का मसला है, क्योंकि इस वजह से मेरा पासपोर्ट बन नहीं रहा है। क्योंकि अगर मेरे नाना का अगर से NIC कंप्लीट होता, क्योंकि कंप्लीट है पर ब्लॉक हो चुका है, तो फिर इस वजह से अम्मी का नहीं बन रहा, और अम्मी का नहीं बन रहा तो मेरा भी नहीं बनेगा। और मेरे नाना जो थे वो बंगाली थे।
तो मेरा नाम कुलसुम है और हमारे घर पे NIC का मसला है। तो मेरा अब्बू अभी जब भी NIC बनाने के लिए जाता है तो यही पूछते हैं कि पहले तुम्हारे अब्बू की लाओ NIC, या वो इंतकाल हुए तो उनकी कार्ड लाओ। तो अब्बू के पास तो नहीं है, वो पंजाब में है, तो हमारे घर इस वजह से NIC नहीं बन रही मेरे दादा की। अब्बू के NIC बनेगी तो ना हम लोग का हर चीज़ बनेगा, हर कार्ड बनेगा ना। अम्मी का है, अम्मी का घर पे भी सबका बना हुआ है, बस अब्बू का वजह से अम्मी का भी नहीं बन रहा। इस वजह से हमारे भी मसला हो रहा है। हमारी सिर्फ पैदाइशी है, NIC वगैरह तो कुछ भी नहीं है। तो मुश्किल तो होता ही है, हर जगह ये NIC छाया होता है। अभी पढ़ाई करने में भी NIC छाया होता है। अभी मैं जुम्बा क्लास की टीचर हूँ, अभी मैं आगे जाऊँगी तो उसमें भी NIC छाया होगा। अभी मैं जिमनास्टिक भी करती हूँ, अगर कहीं बाहर जाना है, कहीं पर जाना है, उसके लिए भी NIC चाहिए होगा। अभी हमारे पास तो नहीं है NIC।
If you look around the space, it's full of children holding books, laughing, teasing each other, making plans to play after class. It feels like any other normal school, but it is not. All these children are struggling with identity issues that deny them their most basic right, the right to education. As disheartening as this may be, there is still something that restores faith in humanity. The passion with which the teachers here teach. Hamida is one of them.
मुझे तकरीबन 10 साल हो गए, अभी 11वां साल शुरू हुआ है। यहाँ पर ज़्यादातर बंगाली कम्युनिटी के बच्चे आते हैं और उनके मसाइल पर अगर बात की जाए तो सबसे बड़ा मसला उनका NIC का है। तो हमारा स्कूल तो अगर डॉक्यूमेंट्स नहीं हैं और कोई भी रीज़न है तो हम लोग तो हर हाल में बच्चे को लेते हैं। हम लोगों ने कभी कोई बच्चा वापस नहीं किया और हमारे पास बच्चे आते हैं, पढ़ते हैं और हमारी कोशिश होती है कि उनके NIC के जो मसले वो भी हमारा इदारा कोशिश करता है कि वो किसी तरह हल हो सके। तो उसके लिए लीगल एड है, वहाँ हम उनको भेजते हैं, फिर उनके मसाइल पर जो भी बातचीत होती है वो लोग करते हैं और उनको आगे गाइड करते हैं वो लोग। पहले शुरू में जब मैं यहाँ आई थी तो मुझे ये अंदाज़ा नहीं था कि ये स्कूल आम स्कूल से इतना हटकर और इतना अलग थलग होगा, क्योंकि मैंने यहाँ आने से पहले 10-11 साल मैंने दूसरे स्कूल में भी पढ़ा है जो प्राइवेट स्कूल्स हैं। तो वहाँ के स्कूल का माहौल, वहाँ के बच्चे वो दूसरी तरह होते हैं। उनका डॉक्यूमेंट्स का मसला नहीं होता है, उनके और किसी तरह के प्रॉब्लम्स नहीं होते हैं, वालिदैन के प्रॉब्लम्स नहीं होते हैं। लेकिन यहाँ पर बहुत मसाइल है। यहाँ पर डॉक्यूमेंट्स के मसाइल हैं कि दूसरे स्कूल वाले उनको लेते नहीं हैं। अगर किसी का B.Pharm नहीं है तो वो आगे नहीं जा पा रहा। अगर वालिदैन का NIC नहीं है या बर्थ सर्टिफिकेट नहीं है तो वो बच्चे दूसरे स्कूलों में नहीं लिए जाते हैं। तो जब मैं यहाँ आई तो मुझे जब ये सब पता चला, फिर इन कम्युनिटी में जो और मसले मसाइल है, बाकी जो मसाइल है, तो मैं अपनी खुशकिस्मती समझती हूँ कि अल्लाह ताला ने मुझे ये मौका दिया है कि मैं इम्कान के साथ जुड़ी और जो इम्कान कर रहा है और उस इम्कान के साथ काम करते इन बच्चों के लिए जो हम 10-11 सालों में जो कर सकें और उनको स्कूल्स भेजा गया है, तो मैं तो अपनी खुशकिस्मती समझती हूँ कि मुझे यहाँ काम करने का मौका मिला। मैं तो यही कहना चाहूँगी कि जो भी बच्चा जहाँ पैदा होता है वो उसका मुल्क होता है, तो इन बच्चों को कम से कम शहरियत मिले ताकि ये जो इनकी बेसिक जो एक शहरी के हुकूक होते हैं वो सारे इनको मिलें और ये आगे बढ़ें, अपनी तालीम मुकम्मल कर सके और माशरे में मकाम हासिल कर सके।
Tahira Hassan, a lawyer and director of the Imkan Welfare Organization, runs a community school for children in Machar colony who have been turned away from formal schools due to documentation issues. Her space is filled with children reading books, laughing, teasing one another. But all of them share one thing in common. They are undocumented.
We've been working in Machar colony and other stateless communities now for the last 14 years. When we initially started working here, we were not aware of the fact that there were issues of statelessness, because statelessness is a concept which is very alien to the populations over here, and people don't understand what it really means. So you'll have challenge of the right to education, right to employment, right to recreation, owning a house, having a SIM card, opening a bank account, getting a car, formal employment. All these things come up as challenges for communities that are stateless. I'll give you an example of during COVID, there was government relief that was given, state-sponsored relief for people that were without work at that point due to the lockdown. These communities were not entitled to that relief due to the lack of identity documents. Similarly, they were not allowed to have the COVID vaccine due to lack of identity documents. There was a resolution to that after a year of advocacy, and finally people that were undocumented were allowed the vaccine, but it was a challenge. So when we look at children or youth over here, they are hugely impacted by the issue of statelessness. Everything in our country is now linked to your identity card, and if you don't have an identity card, then it is not possible for you to progress in any which way. I think one of the really important issues is right to education. If you look at the Constitution of Pakistan, it guarantees right to education under Article 25A, which says that all children between the ages of 5 and 15, 16 are entitled to education. The challenge there is that that is something that is not implemented because the policy is completely different. The policy says you need to have a child registration certificate or a bay form to be able to get admission into school. So therefore, these communities are stuck without having any form of access, which creates even further deprivations. We know of cases where children have given their degree exams and their documentation has been blocked subsequently, which means that the entire work and everything has come to a standstill until those issues resolve themselves. There are definitely things that can be implemented, like we were discussing already. The gap is an implementation gap. Pakistan has really good laws, some of them really progressive laws, where we can implement those, and I think 80% of our issues would be solved. If I go step by step, one would be right to education. Allow all children to go to school irrespective of their documentation process or where they stand with it. Number 2 would be implementation of birthright citizenship and the fact that every child born in Pakistan should be given citizenship. Number 3 would be access to public health care, which they don't have due to lack of identity. So irrespective of identity, people should be given access to healthcare. So these are the major few big ones that we need to work with.
Pakistan's deportation policy may be driven by political security and economic calculation, but at its core, it is the redrawing of lives of people who have spent decades in this country, people who built homes, communities and futures here. For many, the question is not where they came from, but whether they will ever be allowed to truly belong.